October 16th, 2022. The internet watched in real time as one of the world's most successful content creators broke down live on stream, revealing a truth that nobody saw coming. Caitlin Siragusa, better known as Amaranth, wasn't just a controversial streamer pushing boundaries. She was trapped. But this moment was just the climax of a story that began over a decade earlier. A story about ambition, controversy, millions of dollars, and the dark reality behind one of the internet's most polarizing figures. This is the story of how a cosplayer from Houston became one of the most watched, most criticized, and ultimately most successful entrepreneurs in streaming history. And how behind the scenes, nothing was what it seemed. Caitlin Siragusa was born on December 2, 1993 in Houston, Texas. Unlike many influencers who would later dominate the internet, Caitlin's early life was remarkably normal. She grew up in a middle-class family, attended local schools, and by most accounts, was a driven, creative young woman with big ambitions. But Caitlin had something that would define her entire career: an innate understanding of performance and an almost supernatural ability to read what people wanted. Her entry into the public eye came through cosplay. In the early 2010s, as comic conventions were exploding in popularity and social media was giving cosplayers unprecedented reach, Caitlin saw an opportunity. She wasn't just going to dress up as characters, she was going to build a brand. By 2015, Amaranth had become a recognizable name in the cosplay community. Her costumes were elaborate, her attention to detail was meticulous, and crucially, she understood how to market herself. She attended major conventions, built a social media following, and even started her own character company in Houston, where she would appear at children's parties as various characters. On the surface, this was wholesome. Caitlin was running a legitimate business, making kids smile and pursuing her passion for costume design. She was, by all appearances, exactly what she claimed to be: an entrepreneur and entertainer. But Caitlin had bigger plans. The cosplay scene was competitive, and the money, while decent, was limited. She was watching a new platform explode in popularity, a platform where personalities could broadcast to thousands, build communities, and potentially make more money than traditional entertainment could ever offer. That platform was Twitch. In 2016, Caitlin created her Amaranth Twitch account. At first, she did what most people would expect. She streamed cosplay creation, painting, and gaming. She was treating Twitch the way she treated conventions, as a platform to showcase her craft. But something wasn't clicking. The growth was slow. The money was minimal. In a sea of millions of streamers, she was just another face. Caitlin studied the platform obsessively. She noticed something. The most successful streamers weren't necessarily the most skilled or the most creative. They were the ones who understood engagement, controversy, and yes, sex appeal. She saw that female streamers who showed more skin, who played up flirtation with their audience, who created parasocial relationships with their viewers, were making exponentially more money than those who didn't. And Caitlin, ever the strategist, made a calculated decision. If this was what worked, she would do it better than anyone else. Around 2017 and 2018, Amaranth's content started to change. The cosplay streams became less frequent, the gaming became secondary. What emerged was a new kind of content: provocative, boundary-pushing, and incredibly lucrative. She started doing hot tub streams, ASMR content, and body painting streams that walked the line of Twitch's terms of service. Her outfits became more revealing, her interactions with chat became more flirtatious, and her viewer count exploded. By 2019, Amaranth was one of the most watched streamers on Twitch. She was pulling in tens of thousands of concurrent viewers. Her subscriber count was in the thousands, and the money was rolling in. Not just from Twitch subscriptions and donations, but from OnlyFans, Patreon, and sponsorships. Critics accused her of turning Twitch into softcore pornography. They said she was exploiting lonely men. They called her everything from a scam artist to a prostitute. Twitch itself seemed unsure of what to do with her, banning her multiple times for various terms of service violations, but always letting her come back. But Caitlin seemed unfazed by the criticism. In interviews and streams, she presented herself as a savvy businesswoman who was simply playing the game better than anyone else. She wasn't ashamed, she was winning. Or at least, that's what it looked like. Between 2019 and 2020, Amaranth became more than just a streamer. She became an empire. She was streaming nearly every single day, sometimes for 12 to 16 hours at a time. She maintained multiple revenue streams simultaneously: Twitch, OnlyFans, Patreon, Fansly, custom content requests, sponsorships, and merchandise. But she didn't stop there. Caitlyn started investing. She bought an inflatable pool toy company, she invested in gas stations, she put money into stocks and cryptocurrency. She was building wealth in a way that few content creators had ever attempted. By her own public statements, she was making millions of dollars per month. Some estimates put her annual earnings at over $10 million. She was featured in business publications not as a streamer, but as an entrepreneur. To the outside world, this was the American dream realized through the internet. A young woman who saw an opportunity, ignored the haters, and built a fortune through sheer hustle and strategic thinking. But behind the scenes, something very different was happening. Throughout this entire period, Caitlyn maintained a carefully crafted public persona. She never talked about her personal life. Interviews were all business. There was occasional references to having a boyfriend or partner, but details were scarce. She streamed constantly, barely taking days off. Even when she looked exhausted, even when she seemed burnt out, the stream went on. 7 days a week. Sometimes for absurd hours. Always on, always performing. Some viewers found it impressive. Others found it concerning. But most just watched, tipped, and subscribed. Looking back with the knowledge we have now, there were signs, small cracks in the facade that most people missed. There were streams where Caitlyn seemed unusually stressed or upset. Moments where she would snap at chat in ways that seemed out of character. Times when she mentioned feeling forced to stream or not being able to take breaks. But these comments were always quickly walked back or explained away as jokes. There were also financial peculiarities. Despite making millions, Caitlyn often talked about needing money, about financial pressure, about obligations. For someone so successful, it was odd, but again, most people assumed it was just part of her hustle mentality. And there was the marriage. In late 2021 and early 2022, rumors started circulating that Amaranth was married. This was significant because her entire brand was built on being available, on the fantasy that viewers had a chance, on parasocial intimacy. When confronted, Caitlyn gave confusing, contradictory answers. Sometimes she denied it, sometimes she deflected, sometimes she would seem uncomfortable and change the subject. Her behavior was strange, but most people assumed it was just protecting her brand. Nobody understood what was really happening. Nobody knew that every deflection, every contradiction, every moment of visible distress was a glimpse into a nightmare. October 16th, 2022 started like any other day for Amaranth. Another stream, another marathon session in front of the camera. But on this day, something broke. During a stream with thousands of people watching, Caitlyn broke down, visibly distressed. She revealed that she was married. But more than that, she revealed that her husband had been controlling her entire life and career. The stream that followed was horrifying. Viewers could hear her husband on the phone, threatening her. She revealed that he controlled all of her accounts, her money, her password, everything. She said he threatened to kill her dogs if she didn't comply with his demands. She said she hadn't been allowed to tell anyone she was married because it would hurt her earning potential. The internet exploded. Clips from the stream spread across every social media platform. People who had criticized Amaranth for years suddenly saw her in a completely different light. This wasn't a shameless, opportunistic exploiting lonely men. This was a woman who was being exploited herself. The details that emerged painted a disturbing picture. Caitlyn's husband, whose identity was initially kept private but later leaked, had allegedly been controlling her for years. He managed her finances, controlled access to her accounts, and according to Caitlyn, forced her to stream for extreme hours to maximize income. The constant streaming, the inability to take breaks, the visible exhaustion, all of it suddenly made sense. Caitlyn wasn't just grinding for money. She was being forced to perform. The financial control was particularly insidious. Despite making millions, Caitlyn had limited access to her own money. Her husband controlled the bank accounts. The investments, the business entities, everything she had built, he controlled. This is a form of abuse that often is invisible. Coercive control through financial and technological means. In the digital age, controlling someone's online accounts, their income streams, and their digital identity can be effective as any physical restraint. In the days following the October 16th stream, the story continued to unfold. Caitlin made the decision to separate from her husband. She began the process of regaining control of her accounts, her finances, and her life. The internet, which had spent years criticizing and mocking her, suddenly rallied to her support. Other streamers offered help. Legal experts provided advice, and platforms like Twitch and OnlyFans assisted in securing her accounts. The story of what happened after October 2022 is, in many ways, the most important part of Caitlin's journey. She could have disappeared. After everything she had been through, after the public nature of her abuse was revealed, she could have stepped away from the internet entirely. Many people would have. Instead, Caitlin chose to reclaim her empire. In the months following her separation, she continued streaming, but on her own terms. She took actual breaks. She traveled, started appearing on podcasts and in interviews, talking openly about her experience. The content didn't change dramatically. She was still doing hot tub streams, still creating provocative content, still monetizing her sexuality. But now, crucially, it was her choice. She also doubled down on her business ventures. With full control over her finances, she expanded her investment portfolio. She bought more property, invested in more businesses, and started building genuine wealth for herself. By 2023 and into 2024, a different picture of Amaranth emerged. She was still controversial, still polarizing, but there was a new confidence to her. She was more open, more willing to engage with criticism, more willing to be vulnerable. She started talking about her experience with abuse more publicly. She became an advocate for others in similar situations. She spoke about the warning signs, about financial control, and the isolation that can occur even when you're performing for millions of people online. Caitlin also reconnected with parts of her life that had been controlled or suppressed. She attended conventions again, not because she has to, but because she wants to. She travels, she hangs out with other streamers. She has, by all appearances, rebuilt her life on her own terms. The difference between Amaranth in 2021 and Amaranth in 2024 is striking. There's a lightness to her now, a genuine quality that was absent before. The exhaustion has been replaced with energy. The fear has been replaced with confidence. She's still controversial. Her content still generates debate and criticism. She's still pushing boundaries and monetizing every aspect of her personal brand. But now, crucially, again, it's her choice. The story of Amaranth raises uncomfortable questions about the internet, content creation, and society's relationship with sex work and online personalities. For years, millions of people criticized Caitlin Siragusa. They called her a manipulator, accused her of ruining Twitch, claimed she was exploiting lonely men, and the entire time, she was only being exploited. The internet judged her for her content, her success, her apparent shamelessness, but nobody knew she was being coerced. Nobody knew that the constant streaming was demanded by someone else. Nobody knew that she was trapped. Her story shines a light on a form of abuse that's often invisible: financial and technological control. Her husband didn't need to physically restrain her because he controlled her money, her accounts, her entire digital empire. In the modern age, this kind of control can be as effective as any cage. And Caitlin likely isn't alone. In an industry where creators are often isolated, working from home, with finances that are difficult for others to understand, how many others are being controlled? How many success stories have dark realities behind them? Her story also challenges our judgment about sex work and sexually explicit content. Society is quick to judge women who monetize their sexuality, to call them degraded or exploited. But when Caitlin was actually being exploited, she was doing the same content. The difference wasn't the work, it was whether she had choice and control. Now, creating the same content by choice, she's built an empire. She's financially independent. She's powerful. The content didn't change. The autonomy did. Caitlin Siragusa's journey from a Houston cosplayer to Amaranth, one of the most successful content creators in history, is not a simple story of ambition and success. It's a story of survival, of escaping control, and of reclaiming power. She's controversial, yes. Her content is polarizing, certainly. But she's also free, and she's winning on her own terms. The Amaranth Empire wasn't built by one person. It was built by someone who was trapped, and then rebuilt by someone who broke free. And that makes all the difference. Please note, if you know someone who's experiencing domestic abuse, help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233.